People come to tattoo artists looking for symbols of love, loss, rebellion. They come for permanence, for control. But me, I inked my own destruction. It started after the accident. They said I was unconscious for 3 days. Motorbike wreck. I don't remember much. Just blackness, like being sunk under miles of ocean. When I woke up, everything felt sharper. The world hummed with an unnatural stillness, like something was waiting. The first time it happened, I thought it was a coincidence. I doodled a shattered clock on my left wrist. Nothing serious, just a loose sketch with my machine while killing time in the studio. That night, the wall clock in my kitchen fell off its hook and smashed. I laughed it off. Then I tattooed a little envelope on my forearm. The next morning, I received a job offer I'd completely forgotten I'd applied for. A coin. I found $50 on the street. A rose. A girl named Lana walked into my life that week, smelling of gardenias and sin. It wasn't coincidence. It was prophecy. I began using my body as a spell book. Every design was a wish made flesh. More clients came, drawn to my reputation. I raised my rates. Lana moved in. My bank account swelled, my name circled on influencer lists. I was crafting a life with ink, until I made the mistake. It happened after a fight. Lana had this habit, checking my sketches when I wasn't around. She saw something she wasn't supposed to, something I was experimenting with. We fought. I screamed. She screamed back. I needed an outlet, something to bleed the rage into. So I took a pen and drew a tattoo on my thigh. A woman tumbling downstairs, her head split on marble. Her silhouette looked vaguely like Lana. It wasn't a plan, just a moment of spite. Rage made art. I never inked it. It was just a drawing. But the next morning, I got the call. Lana was dead. Slipped. Cracked her skull at the bottom of the staircase in her apartment block. The cops said it was an accident. Neighbors heard no screams, no struggle. But I knew. I checked my thigh. The ink was gone, but beneath the skin, faint shadows remained, like the design had sunk deeper. I tried everything, scrubbing, peeling, even burning, but the shape refused to leave. And then came the dreams. At first it was Lana, twisted, broken, her neck at a wrong angle, her mouth trying to form words through shattered teeth. Then the visions got worse. People I'd never seen before, places that didn't exist, symbols I never tattooed. But when I woke up, those images were on my skin. A dark figure crouched on my chest, a blood-stained ring encircling my ankle. Eyes, so many eyes, watching, blinking, always open. Every time I fell asleep, I'd wake up with something new etched onto my body, new horrors, new omens. I even tried tattooing over them, trying to regain control. My machine buzzed, the ink flowed, but the marks bled through. Black ink turned crimson, then oil slick green. The machine jammed, the power surged. I swear, my skin hissed when the needle touched it. And then the moving started. Yes, moving. I caught my reflection one night in the bathroom mirror. My shirt was off. The black silhouette on my chest, the one shaped like a man, was breathing. Its shoulders rose. Its head turned just slightly toward my face. I screamed and backed away. The thing didn't vanish. It pressed closer to the surface. I stopped going outside. I stopped sleeping. The marks on my body had become a living record of my sins, dreams, and fears. My skin wasn't mine anymore. It was a canvas for something else, something older, hungry. I tried laser removal next, a back alley clinic with no questions asked. The technician zapped the first mark, an eye on my neck, and immediately started convulsing. His eyes rolled back. Blood streamed from his ears. He dropped dead mid-treatment. I didn't go to the hospital. Who would believe me? Now, every night, more appear. Things I didn't draw. Things I didn't even think. Once I saw my childhood home on my ribs, burning. I called my mother in a panic. She didn't answer. 2 days later, I got the news. Electrical fire. She didn't make it. It hit me then. The tattoos weren't just prophecy anymore. They were creation, not only predicting but enforcing, turning my subconscious into a curse. I started to wonder, if the ink creates reality, could it also end it? So I tattooed a gravestone on my chest, carved with my name. Underneath it, "Here lies the last prophet." I thought it would kill me, release me. Instead, it made things worse. That night, I dreamed of a grave, but I wasn't in it. Something else was. Something that opened its eyes in the dark and crawled out. The next morning, my nightmare blinked before I did. My tattoos twisted and smiled. And then I heard the voice, rasping, low, like a whisper between bones. "You thought you were the artist. You were just the skin." Now I barely sleep. I shave my head, trying to catch new marks early. They still come, faster, more violent, symbols of death, rot, rituals I've never seen. I think something else is writing through me now, taking what's left of my mind and mapping it onto flesh. I'm no longer the only one marked. My clients from the early days, those who got lucky tattoos, they're dying. Their skin rejects the ink. It peels, screams. One woman tried to scrape hers off with a cheese grater. Another drowned herself in black ink. It's spreading. I wanted control, wanted meaning. Now I'm covered in it. Truths I was never meant to see, never meant to speak. If you're reading this, if someone ever offers you a tattoo of fate, don't take it. Don't even think about it. Because thoughts become lines, lines become ink, and ink never forgets. I used to think losing my hair was the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. My name is Leo. I'm 32. I sell electronics in a dead-end job that feels more like a punishment than a career. I live alone in a crumbling apartment on the edge of town. And I'm bald. Not the shave it clean and own it kind of bald. The sad, patchy horseshoe around the ears kind that makes people snicker behind your back. Or sometimes to your face. My friends call me shiny, not out of affection. I laugh along, but every time I pass a mirror, I look away. I can't stand the sight of myself anymore. I used to be proud of my looks. Now all I see is a tired, sagging face under a glistening dome of shame. I tried everything. Laser treatments, oils, diets, even praying. Nothing worked. That's when I found the post. It was buried deep in a Reddit thread titled, "Things Big Pharma Doesn't Want You to Know." Regen Felica, regrow your hair at the cellular level. One drop, one life-changing result. No ingredients listed. No company info. No FDA approval. just before and after photos that looked too good to be true. It was stupid, reckless, possibly dangerous, but I ordered it anyway. Because when you're desperate, even a shadow looks like hope. And that was the last time I ever saw my scalp the way it used to be. The last time I saw myself as human. The bottle was small, no bigger than a travel-sized mouthwash container. The liquid inside was clear, with a faint, minty scent. I applied it to my scalp just as the instructions said, 5 drops at night, gently massaged in. The first night, nothing happened. The second, I felt a slight tingling, like tiny needles dancing under my skin. By the third night, I could swear the texture of my scalp had changed. It felt thicker. On day 4, I saw the first sprouts. By the end of the week, it was undeniable. Hair was growing, fast. Dark, healthy strands curled across my temples, my crown, even the barren patch at the back of my head. It wasn't just hair, it was resurrection. I started walking taller, smiling more. I even flirted with the barista at the cafe across from work. A small, stupid victory, but it felt good. For the first time in years, I didn't hate my reflection. I thought the worst was behind me. I had no idea the serum hadn't even finished working yet. It wasn't done growing. It wasn't done changing me. The change didn't stop. By the end of the second week, the growth had become aggressive. I was waking up with strands of hair in my mouth, coiled along my tongue like wet string. It wasn't just my scalp anymore. Hair was sprouting from the nape of my neck, my cheeks, my chest, even the backs of my hands. At first, I laughed it off. Better too much than none, I told myself. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then it spread to the places no hair should be. The inside of my ears itched constantly. I'd dig with cotton swabs and come out with little curls. My eyes watered non-stop because tiny lashes, far too many of them, were growing beneath my eyelids, sweeping against the whites like spiders' legs. I tried shaving, waxing, even borrowed a friend's laser removal kit. Nothing worked. The hair grew back within hours, thicker, darker, more defiant. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt foreign, like something using me. My skin began to crawl, literally. I could feel the hair shifting beneath it. It would move when I got nervous, bristle when I got angry. I started wearing gloves and long sleeves, even in the summer, just to hide it. People stared. One woman asked if I had some rare autoimmune condition. I almost told her yes. The worst part came one night as I was brushing my teeth. I leaned over the sink and spit, and saw a hair, long, black, coiled in my saliva. I gagged and coughed, but it kept coming. A thick strand tugged out from the back of my throat, slick with bile. I yanked until it snapped free and dropped into the sink, writhing like a severed worm. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I found hairs growing beneath my fingernails. I clipped them back, only to watch them unfurl like vines within the hour. My reflection had become a stranger, my face almost hidden beneath a veil of tangled black strands. I tried contacting the seller. The link was dead. The Reddit thread had vanished. The name Regen Follica yielded nothing in any search engine. It was like the product, and whoever made it had never existed. I began to wonder if I was the only one who had used it, or if I was simply the first to survive this long. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the growth stopped. At first, I thought it was over, that my body had fought back, that maybe the serum had finally worked its way out of my system. I even felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. But then I noticed the shedding. I woke one morning to find my pillow covered in clumps, the floor of the shower littered with tangled black knots. My chest was raw, like skin had been peeled. At first I was overjoyed. Maybe my body had fought back. Maybe the mutation was over. I gathered the fallen hair, wet and strangely warm, and dumped it into the toilet. I flushed, watched it spin down into darkness. Smiling weakly, I stepped into the shower to rinse it all away, but the shedding didn't stop. The water ran over my body, carrying more strands down to the drain. Hair slid from my shoulders, chest, thighs. It was like my body was unraveling. I looked down. The drain gurgled, clogged. I reached to turn off the water, but the faucet wouldn't respond. I twisted it harder. Nothing. The water kept flowing, harder now, as if the plumbing had snapped. Then I heard it. A deep, wet crack from beneath the tub. The pipes burst. Water exploded upward from the floor. The walls, even through the mirror frame. The bathroom became a tomb. Within seconds, water covered the tiles. Hair floated everywhere, bloated, undulating like jellyfish, pulsing. I turned to run, but the door wouldn't budge. I yanked harder. That's when I saw them. Strands, black and thick, twisting out of the hinges, holding the door shut. I was locked in. I screamed. Hair slid up from the floor, coiling around my ankles, my wrists, my waist. I tried to tear them off, but more came, stronger, tighter. I slipped, fell backward into the rising flood. My head went under. I fought to rise, but the hair was everywhere, twisting around my neck, snaking up my nostrils, slipping between my lips. I gasped, and the water rushed in. The last thing I saw was the ceiling light, fractured through the rippling water as strands of hair curled softly around my eyes, like a lullaby.
I never planned for that life, waking up each morning to paint my skin the color of cartoon sunshine and pretending for hours to be someone who never really existed. But you didn't always get to choose. Not when bills keep piling up and you're past the age where anyone wants your resume. For 6 months, I worked as a Homer Simpson impersonator at Joy Hill Park. Each day, I covered every inch of my skin in cheap yellow paint that promised to last through anything: heat, sweat, time. The first few times I used it, I noticed a tingling sensation around my cheeks and neck, an itch that stayed until I got home. I figured it was just the weather or something I'd adjust to. It didn't seem serious. People seemed to like me. They waved, smiled, and took photos. Most of all, they loved when I did the Homer Hedge meme. I practiced to get the timing right, easing backward into the bushes the park had planted for that pose. The leaves scratched my arms and sometimes left powdery residue, but I didn't complain. Lately, my shift was flooded with visitors lining up to take photos. They came one after another, each of them looking so eager. I didn't quite understand why. It wasn't until my manager pulled me aside that I found out attendance had doubled. Everyone was excited about that Homer Hedge meme I'd done. So I kept standing there, smiling, slipping into that bush more times than I could count. The kids were thrilled. The adults waited patiently in long lines. Meanwhile, the itching on my neck grew worse by the day, like a swarm of tiny needles digging in under the skin. Still, I kept going. Gritty dust from the leaves stuck to my face and arms, sinking into the paint and turning my skin rough, almost scaly. That week, my boss gave me a small cash bonus. I held it in my hands and thought about how long it had been since I could afford a full bag of groceries. That night, when I got home, I started feeling that something was wrong with my body. My arms were covered in blotchy red patches, and when I scratched them, thin flakes of yellowed skin came off beneath my nails. Under the bathroom light, I told myself it was heat rash or maybe a bad reaction to detergent. I didn't want to stop working. I couldn't. Then one day, someone's video of me doing the Homer Hedge meme went viral. My boss started treating me differently. He called me his golden goose. There was a big event coming up, and if things went well, he said I might even become the face of the entire park. I told myself, if I could just push through this one last time, maybe everything could finally change. I added another layer of paint, trying to hide the cracks along my jaw and behind my ears. It burned more than usual, but I told myself it would pass. Later that morning, I looked closely in the mirror and realized the yellow wouldn't come off. I had scrubbed until my skin burned, yet the color clung on, not as a stain, but as part of me. It wasn't paint anymore. It was my skin. Even beneath peeling scabs, the color stayed. A dull, sickly shade, like old plastic left in the sun. As I shaved, thin strips of skin slid away with the blade. The surface underneath wasn't smooth, but rough and cracked. Small raised bumps lined my cheek. I pressed one, and it burst with a thick, yellowish fluid that smelled sour and foul. I rinsed it away, but the smell lingered on my fingers, sharp and wrong, like something rotting inside me. I told myself it would be fine, just get through the event, then go see a doctor. On the day of the festival, the park was more crowded than ever. I stepped into place, waved, and the first group of kids came running. I smiled, raised my arms in Homer's pose, and leaned into the hedge. That's when something inside me pulled tight, like a string snapping in my chest. My arms trembled, my knees gave out. I remembered falling, the gasp of the crowd, the blur of faces. My cheek hit the pavement, and I felt something peel away. There was no sharp pain, just a wet warmth. I saw a piece of my face, yellow, frayed, lying on the ground beside me. A guard rushed over and reached out, but when his hand touched my arm, he recoiled. His glove was smeared with thick, amber-colored slime. I tried to speak, to explain, but my lips cracked, splitting open. More yellow seeped through. My skin started tearing in long, curling strips. Beneath it, the flesh was soft, swollen, oozing and raw, like meat gone bad. I heard screams. People backed away. I tried lifting my hand, but it barely moved. My joints were stiff, frozen in place. I didn't know what had happened in that bush. Maybe it was the paint, or the heat, or that powder that clung to the leaves. Maybe it was everything, working together, day after day, until my body couldn't resist anymore. Now I sat in a room with white walls and locked doors. They said I was sick. They wouldn't bring me a mirror, but sometimes I caught glimpses in the glass. I still saw yellow. And sometimes the screams came back to me, along with the stunned faces frozen in fear.
It started with one can, just one. The first sip sent a surge of vitality through me, a spark that burned brighter than anything I'd felt in months. That was when the obsession began. I convinced myself it was harmless, just fuel for late-night gaming. But soon, one can became two, then three. By the time I saw the poster for the Prime Energy Challenge, I was already averaging 6 a day. Whoever drinks the most cans in an hour wins, the poster declared. A year's supply of Prime Energy and $10,000 cash. It felt like destiny. I started training immediately. Every day I pushed my body further, guzzling can after can until my stomach felt like it would burst. My body adapted. At least that's what I thought. The sleepless nights, the jittery hands, small prices to pay for greatness. The day of the competition, the stage was electric. The air buzzed with caffeine-fueled excitement as the crowd roared, their energy feeding into my already over-amped nerves. My chest puffed out with confidence. Opponents lined up beside me, but I barely acknowledged them. The announcer's voice boomed.
Are you ready?
The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. I cracked open the first can, chugging it like it was water. The carbonation burned my throat, but I welcomed the sensation. The crowd cheered as I slammed it onto the table and reached for the next. One by one, the cans disappeared. My training had paid off. My hands moved on autopilot, my throat a tunnel for the sugary liquid. 10 cans in, and I felt invincible. But by the 15th can, something shifted. My stomach, bloated and taut, churned ominously. Each gulp sent a wave of pressure surging through my body, the carbonation fighting for space in my overloaded gut. Still, I pressed on. The crowd's chants grew louder, their enthusiasm drowning out the alarm bells ringing in my head. I could taste the finish line. Victory was within reach. Then came the 16th can. As the liquid hit my throat, my body rebelled. I gagged, the carbonation bubbling up faster than I could swallow. Panic set in as I tried to force it down, but my body had had enough. With a violent heave, I spewed a torrent of fluorescent liquid across the stage. Gasps erupted from the audience. I collapsed to my knees, clutching my swollen stomach as the announcer declared the winner. 3rd place. After everything, I was only good enough for 3rd. That night, back in my apartment, the humiliation burned almost as much as my stomach. I hadn't eaten all day, yet I felt fuller than ever. My gut was a rock, stretched tight and unyielding. Sleep eluded me. Each time I closed my eyes, I could feel the energy coursing through me, keeping my heart racing and my mind spinning. By the 3rd night, the effects began to show. Sweat poured from my skin in an unrelenting stream, soaking through my clothes and sheets. My pores seemed larger. When I ran my hand over my arm, it came away slick and glistening, as if my body was leaking. Then came the blisters. Tiny water-filled bubbles erupted across my arms, chest, and neck, itching and burning with every touch. I tried popping one, but instead of relief, more fluid oozed out, drenching my already saturated skin. I told myself it was temporary, a side effect. It would pass. On the 5th night, exhaustion finally won. I sank into a deep sleep, my body limp for the first time in days. When I woke, the sound of rushing water filled my ears. Groggy, I sat up and froze. My room was flooded. Water covered the floor, lapping against the legs of my bed. The air was humid, suffocatingly warm. I looked down at my body and screamed. Every pore on my skin had stretched into gaping holes, each one a tiny faucet spilling water. My arms, my chest, my legs. Every inch of me was leaking. I tried to stand, but my legs buckled. My muscles, once firm, had turned soft and pliable, like overcooked noodles. The water kept coming, pouring from me in an unending stream. It wasn't just water, it was prime. I could smell it, the sickly, sweet scent that had once been so intoxicating, now making me gag. The room filled quickly. Water rose past my knees, then my waist. I clawed at the walls, desperate for escape, but my strength was gone. My body, my sanctuary, was betraying me. As the water reached my chest, I looked down at my reflection. What stared back was no longer human. My skin was translucent, my features distorted by the ripples. I was melting, dissolving into the flood I had created. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was the price of my obsession. When I first started working at La Belle Cuisine, I thought I had a chance to prove myself in the world of high-end culinary arts. But dreams have a way of souring in the harsh reality of kitchen life. Instead of plating delicate entrees or learning the secrets of fine sauces, I found myself relegated to gorying task, peeling mountains of potatoes. The kitchen's damp environment seeped into my skin, turning it rough, scabbed and unrecognizable. Chef Laurent was the worst. His booming voice echoed through the kitchen, barking orders and criticisms with no regard for who was in his path. I was his favorite target.
Paul!
He bellowed one afternoon, slamming a wooden spoon on the counter.
Even a monkey could peel faster than you. Are your hands broken?
The other cooks laughed. My cheeks burned, but I kept my head down, fingers trembling as I worked the peeler. Every day was the same. The final straw came during a staff tasting. I'd spent weeks experimenting with recipes after hours, crafting a dish I hoped would finally earn me some recognition. When Laurent announced a tasting session, I seized the opportunity and presented my creation, foie gras. Laurent took one bite and spat into the dish.
Garbage!
He declared.
Stick to peeling potatoes. That's all you're good for.
Laughter erupted again, louder this time. My vision blurred with tears, but I swallowed them back. I smiled and nodded, but inside, something cracked. That night, alone in the kitchen, I stared at the pile of peelings I'd left unfinished. The steel glint of the peeler caught my eye, and my reflection stared back, warped and jagged. Then Laurent's voice echoed in my head.
Stick to peeling.
I'd been slaving for months, bending over backward for Laurent, only to be humiliated time and time again. If all he saw in me was someone to scrape and discard, maybe I'd give him exactly that. I threw myself into peeling, my knife flashing through tuber after tuber, sweat dripping from my brow onto the growing mound of mashed potatoes. My hands, calloused from relentless labor, began to ache. Without realizing it, the blade slipped, slicing through one of the hardened calluses on my palm. The sliver of skin fell onto the pile of potatoes, almost indistinguishable from the starchy flesh. I froze, staring at the tiny piece of myself nestled among the mash. An idea took root in my mind, grotesque yet irresistible. What if? Driven by exhaustion and a twisted sense of rebellion, I picked up the peeler. Slowly, deliberately, I shaved off another patch of rough skin. The pain was sharp but fleeting, and the satisfaction of reclaiming control was exhilarating. I examined it, transfixed. It was almost poetic, the way my own body could be reduced to nothing but scraps, just like the potatoes, just like Laurent wanted. I mixed the pieces into the mash, seasoning it with salt, pepper, and herbs. The next day, the dish was a hit. Customers raved about the unique depth of the mashed potatoes, praising Laurent for his ingenuity. He basked in the accolades, his chest puffed out with pride, while I stood in the shadows, silently savoring my secret. But the praise didn't change my position. Laurent continued to belittle me, taking full credit for the dishes I prepared. Oddly though, I no longer felt humiliated when peeling potatoes. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, peeling tool in hand. The first time had been an act of rage, but now it felt like power. The kitchen became my domain of transformation. My worsening skin condition provided ample material to mix into the potatoes. Scabs, patches of dry skin, even the occasional drop of blood, all found their way into the mash. With each strip of skin I removed, I felt lighter, freer. I was no longer just Paul, the potato peeler, the kitchen grunt. I'd gather the strips, mix them into the batch of mashed potatoes. I was the secret ingredient, the thing that made their meals unforgettable. The restaurant's reputation soared. Laurent basked in the glory, oblivious to the true source of his newfound success. But my body didn't heal the way I expected. Where I'd peeled, the skin didn't grow back. Instead, strange, pale patches emerged, soft and glistening like raw fish. The pain became a constant hum, but it didn't matter. The dishes were all that mattered. Then, one night, as I prepared another dish, Laurent burst into the kitchen, red-faced.
What is this?
He demanded, slamming a bowl onto the counter. I froze. The broth shimmered with an oily sheen, and tiny pale fragments floated to the surface, pieces I hadn't chopped finely enough.
Explain yourself!
He roared, grabbing my arm. His grip tightened, pulling up my sleeve. The bandages unraveled, revealing the patchwork of raw flesh beneath. His eyes widened in horror.
What have you done?
He whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in months. I've been giving you what you wanted, chef. A piece of me in every dish. Laurent stumbled back, clutching his stomach. His face turned pale as the realization hit. The critic, the patrons, the accolades, all built on the foundation of my sacrifice. He retched, the sound echoing through the silent kitchen. I turned back to the cutting board, the peeler gleaming under the fluorescent lights. There was still so much more to give.
It began like any other morning. I laced up my running shoes and took my usual route through the forest. The crisp air, the sound of leaves crunching beneath my feet. This was my sanctuary. Until today, I nearly stepped on it. A toad sitting eerily still in the middle of the path. I stopped just in time, crouching to get a closer look. Its back was studded with strange golden orbs. At first, I thought they were boils, swollen and ready to burst. Injury, perhaps? But no, the orbs seemed too deliberate, too alive. As I leaned in, the orbs began to sink, like marbles disappearing into the toad's flesh. The holes, deep, dark, and unnervingly round, began to expand. And then, from those grotesque pits, something emerged. I watched in horror as the sacks began to split, revealing grotesque limbs that unfurled with unnatural speed. Tadpoles? No, something worse, birthed directly from the toad's flesh. One of the creatures, slimy and malformed, launched itself onto my arm. I screamed, swatting at the tiny monster, but more of them sprang forth, latching onto my face, my neck. Their tiny, clawed limbs clung desperately to my skin. I could feel the cold, wet slime spreading as I tried to shake them off. But their grip was unyielding. My breaths came in panicked gasps as I clawed at my own skin. Finally, I managed to dislodge them, flinging their writhing bodies into the underbrush. Gasping and trembling, I stumbled home, my arms slick with their mucus. Red welts began to bloom across my skin. In the bathroom, I scrubbed myself raw. The hot water only intensified the burning sensation. I poured soap over every inch of my body, determined to erase the feeling of those things crawling on me. But no matter how much I scrubbed, the sensation lingered. My mind wouldn't stop replaying the scene. Those holes, those sacs, the vile creatures emerging from the depths. When I glanced at the bathroom sink, its drain, a simple circular opening, seemed to pulse. The tiles on the floor with their neat round patterns became a maze of voids. Every pore on my body seemed magnified. Even the tiny pores on my own skin seemed to gape at me, like miniature mouths ready to spew more horrors. I couldn't escape the imagery. Exhausted and desperate, I crawled into bed. I needed sleep, a reprieve from the madness clawing at my sanity. I forced myself to close my eyes and let the world fade away. But when I opened them again, it was there. I bolted upright, heart pounding, but the toad remained, unfazed by my panic. The toad stared at me with its unblinking eyes. Its presence was oppressive, its weight suffocating. My hands. It was my hands that made me freeze. They were slick, their skin darker, shinier. The dim light in my room distorted everything. But even in the shadows, I could see the unnatural sheen. "What did you do to me?" I shouted, my voice breaking. The toad spoke. Its voice was guttural, low, reverberating in my skull.
"I kissed you. You are my mate now. You have to give birth for me."
I scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping in my haste. The mirror on the wall caught my eye, and I turned toward it. What I saw brought bile to my throat. My reflection was no longer human. My skin, now a sickly green-brown, was covered in a slick, mucus-like film. My hands were grotesquely webbed, my eyes bulging slightly from my skull. But worst of all was my back. Through the reflection, I saw golden orbs, the same orbs that adorned the toad, sprouting from my flesh. They pulsed, they quivered. Then, with a sickening pop, the orbs burst open, revealing the same deep holes. My body spasmed as tiny creatures, part human, part toad, began to emerge. Their grotesque forms wriggled free, flopping onto the floor. They called me mother. Dozens of them, no, hundreds, crawled out of me, each more hideous than the last. Their voices, a cacophony of screeches and croaks, filled the room. They climbed onto the bed, the walls, and eventually onto me. Their touch burned, their tiny claws sinking into my flesh. I couldn't scream. My throat was raw, my body overwhelmed. They swarmed me, their weight pressing me down. And as they chanted their grotesque refrain, I felt myself sinking, consumed by their slimy, writhing bodies. Darkness swallowed me. I woke to the sterile hum of fluorescent lights. My skin was raw, covered in red, itchy welts. A doctor stood over me, clipboard in hand.
"You've had an allergic reaction."
He explained, his tone clinical.
"Probably from contact with a toad. You're lucky it wasn't worse."
Relief flooded through me. It was just a reaction, a nightmare fueled by fever and paranoia. But as I sat up, something caught my eye. Tiny round holes had begun to form on my arm, and for a moment, I swore I heard a faint croak.
I didn't know it would seep into me like poison. None of us did. Back then, the excitement of the role, the promise of fame, was a song I couldn't resist.
"You're perfect for the Tin Man."
The director had said, eyeing me with that hungry, hollow smile.
We want real, authentic, pure art.
Real. It always starts with that word. And so I agreed when they told me the makeup would be special. An aluminum paint, a metallic sheen that would make my face gleam like I'd stepped straight out of a fairy tale. I sat in the chair for hours. The makeup artist was meticulous, layering on the aluminum liquid with a brush that felt stiff, almost sharp against my skin. The paint was cold, seeping into my pores, stiffening as it dried. I barely recognized myself when I glanced in the mirror, a grinning, gleaming statue of a man.
Don't smile too much.
The makeup artist warned.
It might crack.
Crack. I should have paid attention to that word too. The first sign was the itch. It started as a tickle under my chin, just beneath the aluminized jawline.
Cut!
I scratched absently, my fingernails scraping against the hardened paint. Nothing. My skin wasn't mine anymore. It was smooth and unyielding, a surface more metal than flesh. By day 3 of shooting, the itch had grown into a wildfire. My face burned underneath the layers of makeup, and the feelings spread like ants crawling up my throat into my ears. My skin no longer itched. It screamed.
It's fine.
The director barked when I complained.
Art is sacrifice, remember? Look at you! You're beautiful! The Tin Man lives because of you.
Beautiful. I stopped arguing. I stopped sleeping too, because every night I would wake with my body cramped in agony. Fingers curled into claws, toes bent until I thought the bones might snap. My skin felt hot, but my reflection was still ice cold. Then the coughing started. I was in my trailer rubbing my forearm absently. Aluminum dust shimmered off my fingertips like falling ash. I coughed once, then again, harder this time, and felt something catch in my throat. When I spit into the sink, the sputum was grey. Dark veins of aluminum streaked through it. It's fine, I muttered to myself, but my voice sounded wrong, hoarse, metallic, as if something hollow were vibrating inside me. I leaned in close to the mirror and gasped. The skin around my mouth had cracked. Tiny fissures ran from the corners of my lips, flaking open to reveal raw, oozing red. I touched it, and a piece of silvered skin peeled away like dried paint. I bit back a scream. I had become what they wanted, but... I went back on set the next morning, but no one would look me in the eye.
Don't touch him.
I heard one of the extras whisper.
The stuff gets on you. It doesn't come off.
My co-star recoiled when I brushed her arm. I looked down to see aluminum dust smeared across her pristine costume. I tried to wipe it away, but my fingertips left behind streaks, and when I pulled my hand back, my nails had turned silver. The burning worsened. My skin, no, my surface, tightened until I could barely move. I felt like a statue that might shatter if I moved too quickly. Still, they made me perform. Still, they called it art. The final scene was meant to be triumphant, the Tin Man walking into the sun. I staggered onto the set, blinking against the blinding light. Each step felt heavier than the last, my joints grinding like gears.
Keep going!
The director yelled. My feet stuck to the ground. I looked down and saw aluminum pooling around my boots, spreading like mercury. as if I were melting into the earth. I tried to lift my foot, but it was no longer mine. My toes had fused together, the aluminum consuming the spaces between them. "Help!" I croaked, my voice ringing like a cracked bell. No one came. The sun grew hotter. I raised a trembling hand to shield my face and saw the skin slough off, ribbons of aluminum paint fluttering away to reveal smooth, gleaming metal. My hand caught the light and reflected it back at me, a twisted, blinding mockery of myself.
Almost there.
The director whispered, his voice filled with awe. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came. My lips had fused together, my vision blurred, darkening at the edges, and in those final moments I realized what I had become, a statue, a monument to sacrifice. I woke up in a hospital bed, the ceiling a sterile white. My lungs burned with every breath, and a mask hissed softly over my face, pumping oxygen into me.
"You inhaled too much aluminum dust,"
the doctor said when I opened my eyes.
"You're lucky we caught it in time."
Lucky. I spent 2 weeks trapped in that bed, ribs aching with every inhale, my body slowly purging itself of the aluminum poison. They told me my skin had turned blue during the reaction. I tried to laugh at the irony, but the sound came out broken. The studio sent flowers, but no apology.
"They're replacing you.
My agent told me.
It's not personal, okay? They're changing the makeup. It's safer now."
Safer. I lay back in bed staring at the ceiling, imagining the next poor fool sitting in that makeup chair, letting the aluminum seep into his skin. I wondered if he'd see me in the mirror, a shadow of the Tin Man, trapped forever in the cracks. I'm a microbiologist. My specialty? Fungal and viral mutations. If it's gross, dangerous, or involves things sprouting out of places they shouldn't, I'm your guy. It's a dream job. If your dreams include endless pressure, angry bosses, and occasionally dodging test subjects that want to eat your face. Most days, I wanted to curl into a ball and scream, but instead I trudged on, wearing my lab coat like a cape of martyrdom. Then one day, I thought, what if I didn't have to? The idea hit me like a runaway pipette. What if I turned myself into one of those creatures? Temporarily, of course. I'd be too sick to work, collect my occupational hazard insurance, and finally relax. Bonus: nobody could yell at a guy with mutant claws. Thus began the project. I concocted a gas designed to mutate human bodies for 3 days. The fungal compound would dissolve and reconfigure tissue, creating temporary, horrifying mutations before self-destructing. Side effects included mild swelling and a rash, basically the flu with an extra dose of nightmare fuel. Perfect for taking a break without worrying about anyone dying. Step 1. Test it on myself, because that's always the best idea, right? I dipped my finger into the glass jar containing the gas. At first, nothing happened. Then, everything happened. The skin on my finger turned black, sprouting tiny fungal threads that twisted and curled like they had a vendetta. My veins popped like black lightning bolts, and my hand ballooned into a grotesque claw. The pain was intense. But an hour later, it was over. My hand was back to normal, save for some itchy redness. I even high-fived myself with my non-mutated hand for pulling it off. The plan was working. By lunchtime, everything was ready. I figured I'd reward myself with a nice last meal before my vacation. A bowl of pho never tasted so good. When I got back, though, something was wrong. The capsule was locked. Inside was Min, my overly curious colleague, slumped over like he'd just taken a really bad nap. My stomach dropped faster than my high school GPA. The idiot must have activated the gas while snooping around. "Min!" I shouted, banging on the glass. No response. And then he moved. His body spasmed as fungal veins crept across his skin. His limbs contorted, his jaw unhinged, and his head grew. A massive, mushroom-like structure burst from his skull, spraying spores across the pod. Min, buddy, you okay?" He roared. The pod door hissed open and Min stepped out, or what was left of him. His claws scraped the floor as he lumbered forward, a terrifying mix of rage and confusion. "Okay, let's not do anything rash," I stammered, backing away. He didn't listen. One swipe of his oversized arm sent my lab bench flying. I dodged and bolted for the control panel, slamming the emergency lockdown button. The lab door sealed shut with a satisfying clang. No way was I letting the boss find out. If this got out, I'd be buried in work, overtime, and pay cuts. This mess was mine to fix. Unfortunately, Min wasn't a fan of locked doors. He pounded on the reinforced glass, cracks spiderwebbing with each hit. I needed a plan. Fast. Grabbing a fire extinguisher, I crept toward him. The second he broke through, I let loose a blizzard of foam, momentarily blinding him. He howled, swiping wildly, but I managed to activate the decontamination system. Gas filled the room, designed to neutralize pathogens and hopefully raging mushroom men. For a moment, it worked. Min staggered, coughing and wheezing. I started to breathe again. But then he adapted, because of course he did. Great. Desperation hit. My eyes darted to the capsule, the one thing that could even the odds. If I mutated myself, I might stand a chance. I sprinted for it, sliding into the pod like an action hero. But when I hit the activation button, nothing happened. Sparks flew from the control panel. Min's earlier rampage had severed the power supply. Of course! Why not? I slumped in the pod, exhausted. Min stalked closer, his heavy breaths filling the room. I closed my eyes, ready to accept my fate. But then, salvation arrived. The lab door burst open, and a team of security guards stormed in. They shot Min with tranquilizer darts and hit him with electrified nets. He thrashed and roared. But eventually, the beast went down. As the guards dragged Min away, my boss showed up, hitting me with their signature line.
Care to explain what the hell just happened here?
I gave a weak thumbs up. science experiment? You'd think my problems ended there, but no. First, I was stuck writing a mountain of incident reports. Then, I was ordered to develop a cure for Min while taking over his workload. After a week of sleepless nights and more caffeine than any human should consume, I finally cracked it. Min was cured, though he wasn't thrilled about the whole mutant mushroom thing. Fair. As for me, I learned an important lesson. Sometimes taking a break is better than accidentally turning your coworker into a murder machine. But hey, at least I didn't have to dodge test subjects this week. Small victories.